So, as the stage is swept clean, last year, after 2 years of COVID, the committee put out a call for ideas about what might building back better look like across Sydney. The quality of submissions was very high, and I'm told there were so many and they were so good that there'll actually be a whole new session on this in the future to showcase all of them. But today we're going to hear from 4 of the best. These ideas will be presented in a Petrakucha format, which I'm sure I've mispronounced that, so apologies if I have. It's a Japanese-inspired style that is meant to be fun and engaging and short and sharp and lively. The presenters will all have 20 slides each, and they've got 20 seconds to talk to each slide. So let me introduce the 4 groups. The first is Jeremy Gill and Catherine Wotherspoon from SGS Planning and Economics with their green transit-oriented development idea, which is a vision for a more livable, workable, beautiful and fairer Sydney. Alison Lee from Urbis, who's presenting a bold case for rethinking the curb. Uchi Grau from the University of Technology Sydney and Guillermo Fernandez Abascal, who have reimagined Campsie, which is very exciting, and Ivan Power and Sydney Water's Chris Gould, who are introducing Urban Plunge, which is a wonderful new vision for a swimmable Sydney. So please make them all welcome.
Okay, hopefully the clicker works here. My name is Jeremy Gill.
And I'm Catherine Wotherspoon.
And we're from SGS Economics and Planning. Great cities and neighbourhoods around the world have distinct urban identities. And in many of these places, movement defines this. Think of Venice and its canals, Amsterdam and its cycling, New York and the High Line, Barcelona and La Ramblas, and even LA and its freeways. But what defines Sydney beyond the harbour? Is there an opportunity for our urban identity in the future to be shaped by movement? Our Build Back Better idea imagines a network of green, active transport corridors that do more than just shade and move people. They actually define and redefine the neighbourhoods that they traverse.
Our idea brings together 2 well-established planning concepts. The first, transit-oriented development, is generally considered as high-density, mixed-use development immediately adjacent to mass transit corridors or stations. It doesn't usually consider anything outside of these centres. And the second concept, green corridors, is a way to introduce amenity to places with green places. So, cooling streets, connecting people with green space, and putting habitats together where they weren't considered close before. And these 2 concepts are usually considered in isolation or as trade-offs from each other. And in Sydney, these 2 planning principles are already an active part of metropolitan planning strategy. The green and blue grid aims to connect green and blue pathways throughout Sydney in order to connect people more closely with green space. And the movement and place framework considers how movement corridors influence and are influenced by surrounding neighbourhood character. But successful neighbourhoods are greater than the sum of their parts. Streets are playing a vital role in creating thriving neighbourhoods and civic amenity. And in increasingly dense cities, they're playing an even greater role in public domain and civic life. They are a critical part of urban infrastructure. Our idea is fairly simple. We bring together these 2 planning frameworks in a way which extends the benefits of each. It creates an urban outcome greater than the sum of its parts. And the ingredients are already there. We just need to think about how they can be reprioritised to create better place outcomes. The problem with conventional approaches in isolation is that they don't unlock the full potential of urban development. Radial density models can create islands of density, and green corridors often plan just for the space in between buildings. They only respond to existing land uses and movement functions.
Our idea inverts the current approach to green corridor planning, where so often the surrounding land uses dictate and limit the role and the function of those green corridors. And we think this really limits the potential that green corridors can play in delivering the centres that the Minister and Gabriel have talked about just before. Instead, we think there's an opportunity to consider how green corridors can be a catalyst for land use change and land use planning by actively defining the land uses that anchor to them. It's really a reprioritisation of what we put our effort into as we start to plan for centres and green corridors. This would envisage a network of green corridors leading into the centres with metros and high public transport accessibility, being an anchor for the development along their spine. And rather than density, and particularly medium density, being limited to the surrounds of that centre, the green corridors extend that density and the amenity that supports them further away. Current approaches to centre development tend to concentrate this development and density and the amenities in the centre. And the further away you get from the centre, density decreases, the diversity of amenities do too, and your transport options do as well. And many of these centres also have a lack of open space. If we start to think about how green corridors can be the catalyst for change in centres, we have the opportunity for that development to be anchored to the green corridor, extending further out from the centres, linked back in through the active transport corridors, but dragging with it density, and particularly medium density, and the amenities to create vibrant urban spaces.
So our concept will help support 5-minute neighbourhoods. And these are being increasingly recognised as important aspects of social cohesion in dense communities. And the beauty is, this doesn't require a revolution in the planning processes. We already have many of these frameworks in place today. We just need to look at it in a different way, by using green corridors as the catalyst for change. One of the key distinctions with our idea, when compared to current green grid visions, is that it is targeted where it should be delivered. It doesn't apply to all corridors or all centres, but it has the potential to be applied across a range of corridor types across Sydney. And so what we thought about was where this is going to be delivered and where are the places that it is needed. There's several conditions that we thought about. So places that have a lack of open green space, places with established local centres and good public transport, and areas where the density drops off quickly from the existing centre. And these are the places where we thought where those conditions were met. And what's clear here is that this opportunity can shape and reshape centres right across Greater Sydney. The idea has the potential to redefine the urban identity of a whole range of neighbourhoods.
There's a number of benefits that we see to this approach, beyond those already known around green corridors and active transport, cooling the city in an increasingly hot climate. It's a more efficient use of land, putting more people and more diversity of land uses close to centres and public transport. It delivers on strategic aspirations of density done well in the missing middle. And it also starts to create the 5-minute neighbourhoods that we're all becoming more familiar with post-COVID. And I think that's the really important point. As we start to redefine our relationship with our neighbourhoods, there's an opportunity for critical infrastructure such as green corridors to do more than just shade and move people. They can actually become the catalyst for land use change in the creation of the 5-minute neighbourhoods. Our idea is pretty simple. It's bringing together a couple of existing planning concepts, but reprioritising it so that green corridors do more than just shade and move people. They should become the defining feature of the urban neighbourhoods that they surround. And in doing so, we can start to rethink the urban identity of Sydney and its centres. Thank you.